I'm Katie Wilson and you're watching A News. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Global reactions pour in as Trump and Netanyahu unveil their new Gaza peace plan. The EU proposes reparations loans for Ukraine using frozen Russian assets. And Afghanistan goes dark as the Taliban impose a nationwide communication shutdown. First this evening, the US brokered Gaza plan is already making waves beyond Washington. Many see it as a step towards peace in the region, and some are hopeful it could even have a broader global impact.
After the announced Trump-Netanyahu Gaza plan has sparked many international reactions. Some Western leaders have expressed hope. French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer each posted on social media, urging both Hamas and Israel to consider the proposal seriously. They stressed the need for Hamas to accept the plan and called on Israel to stay engaged in the peace process. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen also welcomed US President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan on Tuesday, posting on X, urging all sides to seize the opportunity. Meanwhile, Hamas's negotiation team has received the plan through Qatar and Egypt. However, the group has not yet issued any official response. In a rare show of unity, several key Arab and Muslim majority countries, including Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan, Indonesia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, issued a joint statement welcoming the initiative. Their foreign ministries expressed readiness to work with the US toward implementing the plan. Trump's special envoy to Middle East, Stephen Witkoff, emphasized the broader impact of the proposal. Speaking to Fox News, he said the successful implementation of the plan could not only bring peace to Gaza, but also help stabilize other parts of the Middle East and even contribute to ending the war in Ukraine.
Sticking with the new Gaza plan, let's delve further into what this document presents for both parties and for the region. The proposal outlines major steps towards a ceasefire, prisoner exchanges and the future governance of the Strip. Let's see more.
The new Gaza plan, unveiled by US President Donald Trump alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, could mark the most significant shift in the conflict since it began. But first, it must be accepted. Let's dive into some of the 20 points to see what's in the deal and what is not. At the heart of the plan is the release of all Israeli hostages, alive and dead, within 72 hours of Israel accepting the agreement. In return, Israel would free 1,950 Palestinian prisoners, including 250 serving life sentences, and all women and children detained since the 7th of October 2023. For every deceased Israeli returned, Israel will also return the remains of 15 Palestinians. The fighting would stop immediately. Israeli forces would pull back to a pre-agreed line inside Gaza. No aerial or ground attacks would be allowed, and battle lines would stay frozen. However, Israel would not fully withdraw until certain conditions are met. Hamas would be excluded from any future role in Gaza's governance. Hamas must agree to demilitarize, give up weapons and accept peaceful coexistence. Those who comply could receive amnesty. Those who choose to leave Gaza would be given safe passage to countries willing to accept them. Gaza would be run by a temporary Palestinian-led technocratic committee with no political affiliation. The committee would be overseen by a new international body called the Board of Peace, chaired by Donald Trump. So far, only one other member has been named, former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. The plan also promises full humanitarian aid to the Strip through the United Nations and other international groups. It also calls for Gaza to be redeveloped for the benefit of its people, but no specific investors or timelines have been named. A weapons buyback and reintegration program would help former fighters transition to civilian life. Under the new plan, Israel would pledge not to annex or permanently take full control over Gaza. No one would be forced to leave. But a key challenge remains. Hamas has not yet responded, and many analysts say accepting the deal would mean the end of the group. Without their buy-in, the plan may never take off. This proposal is one of the most detailed yet, but its success depends on all sides agreeing, including Hamas, who so far remains silent.
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is returning home after backing President Trump's 20-point plan to end the war in Gaza. The deal has won support from hostage families and opposition leaders, but sparked pushback from his far-right coalition partners. Our correspondent Blake Sifton has more.
As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu makes his way back to Israel after agreeing on President Trump's 20-point plan to end the war in Gaza, reaction is beginning to roll in. We've heard from the family members of the hostages held in Gaza, as well as opposition leaders here in Israel, moderate opposition leaders, and they have welcomed, even celebrated this agreement. We've also heard from some members of Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party. They have welcomed the agreement, while others have expressed skepticism that Hamas will accept it. However, when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu's far-right coalition partners, they are far less enthusiastic. Far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich reacted to this deal. He said the plan gives up real achievements on the ground for political illusions, a diplomatic bear hug, and glittering ceremonies. He added that the entire process would end in tears. He does not support it. However, he did not go so far as to say that he would work to thwart it. He said that his party would hold consultations and deliberations to decide on their response. Similarly, far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, his party is holding an emergency faction meeting this afternoon to discuss a response to the proposal. There are many parts of this proposal that they do not like. There are parts that even Prime Minister Netanyahu has opposed himself in the past. The first of those is the role for the Palestinian Authority, a reformed Palestinian Authority, to eventually take over control of Gaza from a transitional government of Palestinian technocrats. Netanyahu had vowed that that would not happen, and last night in his press conference with President Trump, he seemed to pour cold water on the idea that it ever would happen. He said that the transformation of the Palestinian Authority would have to be genuine and radical. Also, the far right does not like the mention of pathways towards the creation of a Palestinian state. Netanyahu himself has vowed to never allow for the creation of a Palestinian state. The far right also will not like the promise that Israel will not annex or occupy Gaza, or that the population, the civilian population of Gaza, will not be forced to leave, and that those who have already left will be allowed to return. Because, of course, the far right, for quite some time now, has advocated for the expulsion of the Palestinian population, some 2 million people from Gaza, and the reoccupation and resettlement of Gaza by Israel. The far-right members of Netanyahu's coalition, of course, could decide to leave the government. They could try to collapse the government to prevent this deal from going through. However, moderate leaders, such as opposition leader Yair Lapid and others, Benny Gantz, have said that if that were to happen, they would step in to prop up the government, to give the government the votes they need in order for this deal to go through. Blake Sifton for A News in Tel Aviv.
Well, earlier we were joined by Tom Gross, a political analyst in Tel Aviv, who said Qatar's influence is key in pressuring Hamas to stop the war, noting a recent shift in Doha's position following Israel's airstrike on Hamas leadership and a softer stance from Al Jazeera towards Israel.
I don't think Hamas will want to say yes But Hamas's paymasters are Qatar, and it seems like Qatar have signed on. In fact, they've already welcomed it officially, the Qatari government. And I'm not sure Hamas are in a position to defy Qatar. And in fact, I've been arguing for 2 years that if the West had put a bit more pressure on Qatar, instead of accepting their very generous financial donations to every universities, political campaigns, sports events, and the like, the war could have stopped sooner, because Qatar are the one party that could tell Hamas to stop the war. And I think that although Israel was criticized for striking the Hamas leadership in Qatar in an airstrike a couple of weeks ago, I think we've seen a change in position for the better from Qatar since then. And Qatar is telling Hamas, stop your war. It's now causing us more trouble than it's worth. We don't want to get involved directly, which is what happened when Israel did that airstrike on Hamas leadership in Qatar. And in fact, in the last few days, I've seen a noticeable difference in Al Jazeera, the mouthpiece of Qatar, have suddenly softened their position on Israel and are being less pro-Hamas. So, I think Israel's act, which was criticized at the time by Netanyahu on Qatar, have changed Qatari's position. And I think Qatar are the only people that can really pressure Hamas.
Well, as we've seen, Trump's long-awaited plan on Gaza has fueled divided opinions. In the Strip, residents say it favours Israel and ignores their plight, while in Jerusalem, people hope it might secure the release of hostages, even as scepticism grows over whether Hamas will disarm.
Palestinians in the West Bank voiced sharp disappointment on Tuesday after US President Donald Trump unveiled a 20-point peace plan for Gaza, backed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Since the plans were announced to end the nearly 2 years war, it has drawn mixed reactions. The plan calls for an immediate ceasefire, a staged Israeli withdrawal from the Strip, the release of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, Hamas disarmament, and a transitional government led by an international body. Palestinians have dismissed the initiative as little more than a fresh attempt to impose control and say it brushed aside the recognition of the statehood of Palestinian.
I'm surprised, even before Trump and Netanyahu's meeting, that now more than 150 countries have recognized the Palestinian right to exist, yet unfortunately yesterday's meeting did not address the Palestinian issue at all. We are far from everything. We are talking about 24 months of killing, destruction, displacement, and until now, Trump and Netanyahu are sound asleep.
In Gaza's makeshift camps, many expressed anger at what they viewed as an imposed arrangement that sidelines Palestinian aspirations.
This plan falls in Trump and Israel's favor. They have interests in Gaza. They want to end Gaza in any way possible. There's gas in Gaza. They want to turn Gaza into Trump resorts, and Trump, wants to finish his plan. And all these complications are from Trump and Netanyahu, and if they wanted to solve the war, they would have solved it a long time ago.
Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, some Israelis welcomed the plan, calling it a deal they could live with, praising the backing it gives Israel, and hoping it might finally bring hostages home. Yet while some expressed optimism, others questioned whether Hamas would ever disarm after 2 years of war.
Great day for Israel. I don't see anyone from right to left who's going to go against it. The only question is now if Hamas will approve and end this misery that we are in it for almost 2 years.
The proposal still leaves major questions unresolved, including the role of the Palestinian Authority and the possibility of a future Palestinian state, which Netanyahu continues to oppose. For now, its success hinges on Hamas, whose response remains uncertain.
Over to the United States, where President Trump is addressing a rare gathering of senior military leaders at Quantico, a Marine Corps base near Washington, D.C. Hundreds of generals, admirals, senior commanders and their top advisors have been summoned from all over the world by Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth with little notice. No official reason has been given for the meeting, but the US President has been talking about global issues, including the war in Gaza, the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the US withdrawal of Afghanistan. The European Commission has proposed a reparations loan for Ukraine, backed by frozen Russian assets. President Ursula von der Leyen said the money would be released in instalments, with part of it earmarked for defence procurement in Europe. She stressed the plan does not seize Russian funds and that repayment would depend on Moscow paying reparations. Alongside this, the EU in Ukraine agreed to allocate €2 billion for drones, boosting Kyiv's capacity while supporting European technology. NATO Chief Mark Rutte backed the initiative, warning that Europe must find cost-effective ways to counter Moscow's drone tactics.
Thank you. Thank you. Wish you a nice day.
Sweden is sending anti-drone systems and radar equipment to Denmark after a wave of drone incursions disrupted air traffic. The move comes just days before major European summits in Copenhagen this week.
Security has tightened in Copenhagen ahead of European summits this week, with France, Germany and Sweden sending extra military personnel and anti-drone systems to Denmark. Several Danish airports had to temporarily close after drone incursions disrupted air traffic in recent weeks, with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen describing the incidents as a hybrid attack on her nation. On Sunday, Denmark banned civilian drone flights after drones were also spotted near several military sites overnight. Now Sweden is sending anti-drone capabilities, including counter-unmanned aircraft system and radar systems.
Around 1 week ago, the first indications emerged that drones were blocking airports in Copenhagen. I was in contact with Mette Frederiksen, the Danish Prime Minister. This came immediately after Poland had confirmed drone attacks, Russian ones, and then airspace violations in Estonia and Romania. So we took this very seriously.
European nations have linked the drone activity to suspected Russian incursions. Estonia reported Russian fighter jets violating its airspace earlier this month, while Poland and Romania confirmed drone incidents as well. Germany has sent a frigate, the FGS Hamburg, which has docked in Copenhagen to help monitor airspace. Copenhagen will host European Union leaders on Wednesday, followed by a summit of the 47-member European political community on Thursday.
Welcome back to A News. The European Commission will propose a defence readiness map in the European Union, outlining 4 projects to defend itself against Russia. These are the drone wall, an eastern flank vigilance project, an air defence shield and a space defence shield. To talk us through all of this and what this all means, we are joined by political analyst Diogo Castro Silva. Thank you for being with us. Now, what do you make of the timing of this, given the recent drone incursions into NATO airspace?
Well, we are facing in Europe perhaps one of the biggest threats to security that we've witnessed in recent times. Let me put this in context. First of all, the drones and drone capacity is one of the most significant revolutions in military affairs in the recent times. It provides the aggressor with a cheap mean of striking against an adversary, and it changes the concept not only of the front line, as we can see in Ukraine, in the sense that the idea we have of a front line full of soldiers is not valid in Ukraine. It's a front line with little pockets of soldiers controlled by over their heads by drones. It changes the notion of logistics. So what is your rear? How do you supply your armies? And it also changes the notion of how you can defend your critical infrastructure against such a cheap offensive weapon. Meaning, with a little budget, not only state actors like Russia, or even criminal groups can disrupt significant parts of the infrastructure like airports. So it's urgent for Europe, that is increasingly in the front line of this conflict, because in a way Russia has declared war against Europe for a long time. The nature of hybrid attacks being assassination attempts, sabotage and everything. This means this is a critical vector where Europe has to prepare itself. And in this vector, Europe also needs the help of Ukraine, because Ukraine is the only army in Europe that has fully developed a drone defense doctrine and has applied it in a tactical way.
Tell me more about that. How will Ukraine and Europe be working together in regards to these anti-drone measures?
Well, we need the expertise of Ukraine to defeat. This is about electronic warfare. And this is a game of cat and mouse between the operator and the drone and the defense, which is basically electronic warfare. What is this electronic warfare? It's basically disrupting the communication between the operator and the drone itself. And this is where Ukraine has a lot of experience, because this is getting more and more sophisticated. And part of the equipment and part of the forces in Europe, and I'm not speaking only of armed forces, I'm speaking about police as well, that has to know what is a spectrum analyzer about the frequencies that are used by drones and at which frequency this drone is being operated. So it's a question in terms of defense that not only touches the armed forces, but it touches also other law enforcement or other parts of the state, including police, because they are in the front line in many of this infrastructure, like airports, electrical plants, and other critical infrastructure where an attack can occur. Because I think this is very important for people to understand, as these recent drone incursions have been done by drones that have no payload, apparently, so have no explosives. But this can quickly develop into a large-scale attack, a kind of Pearl Harbor moment for Europe against its critical infrastructure.
Now, we're hearing Sweden is sending anti-drone systems and radar equipment to Denmark ahead of major European summits in Copenhagen. How unprecedented actually is that? Because it's pretty normal for Scandinavian countries to share security, police resources. How concerned should we actually be about this and about this drone threat?
Well, I think we should be extremely concerned. First of all, the fact that Sweden has lent equipment, this is not in itself new. We have had sporting events where countries have cooperated on air defense and other mechanisms. So by itself, it's not new, this kind of cooperation ahead of a major summit. What is kind of new is the threat that we are facing, because I insist is a threat from a state actor, Russia, but it's a threat that Russia can subcontract this threat to criminal groups all around Europe as well. So it's a threat that is very difficult, especially for democracies, because democracies are pretty able to defeat threats that are overt, so a major invasion. So there is ample evidence that democracies, because of their more legitimacy, are very able to fight an open conflict. However, this kind of conflicts that are below a certain threshold, that are in what people call a gray zone, hybrid and everything, may make it difficult for democracies to mobilize in terms of peace to defeat this threat. And this is something that requires a clear communication to the public opinion so that they understand the threat. This is not theoretical, because this can rapidly escalate into large-scale attacks. I insist, we had several incursions in Denmark, Sweden, UK in the past around air bases. So an attack, a drone swarm that really does an attack is a very possible event, and the kind of weapon the drone is then will make attribution, which is an essential part of retaliation, very difficult, because like I said, you are talking about areas where Russia can even subcontract third parties to do this kind of attacks, which make it difficult to attribute then cause and then to act upon it. So we are really facing, I wouldn't say an immediate threat in the sense we can have war tomorrow, but we are facing a very, very, very serious security crisis.
Thank you very much for joining us on the programme and for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Italy and Azerbaijan are boosting their strategic partnership with energy and education at the forefront. President of Italy, Sergio Mattarella, is meeting with the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. Our reporter, Andy Mioch, joins us from the venue.
We're coming to you from the Zugulba presidential residence, where Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev is hosting his Italian counterpart, Sergio Mattarella, during his official visit to the country. On the agenda, trade, energy and broader bilateral relations. A few words on the cooperation between the countries. Italy is among Azerbaijan's key trading partners and a top buyer of Azerbaijani oil. When you look at the numbers just from January to August this year, the trade turnover has reached $8.3 billion, which translates to roughly a little more than a quarter of Azerbaijan's foreign trade. Compared to the same period last year, the volume of Azerbaijani oil exported to Italy has increased by 48%. Besides oil, the route that carries Azerbaijani natural gas to Europe via the Trans-Anatolian and Trans-Adriatic pipelines ends in southern Italy. Back to the visit itself, Mattarella came to Baku from Astana, where he met Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, with whom he talked on strengthening bilateral relations and economic cooperation. Ahead of the trip, the Italian presidency announced that Mattarella is also set to visit the Italo-Azerbaijani University campus, which was opened in collaboration between Azerbaijan's ADA University and several Italian universities. For now, from Baku, for A News, Andy Mioch.
Well, as we've seen, the Italian president has arrived in Baku today, and the visit underscores the importance of bilateral relations and explores new opportunities for cooperation across multiple sectors.
Relations between Azerbaijan and Italy have strengthened and grown in recent years within industries such as energy, trade, investment and technology. These ties are vital not only for both economies, but also for regional and European energy stability, according to officials. President Sergio Mattarella's visit to Baku on Tuesday is expected to reaffirm those traditional ties and launch discussions on further projects in industrial, technological and infrastructure sectors. Italy is Azerbaijan's largest trading partner. From January to August this year, trade reached $8.3 billion. That's more than a quarter of Azerbaijan's foreign trade. Most exports are oil and petroleum products, with more than 9.1 million tons shipped to Italy, valued at $4.8 billion. That's an increase of 48% in volume and 22% in value compared with the same period last year. Energy remains central to the partnership. Italian companies, including Ansaldo Energia, have contributed to major Azerbaijani infrastructure projects, such as supplying gas turbines and generators for the Mingachevir 8th of November power plant. Azerbaijani gas is exported to 14 countries, with the TAP pipeline connecting the South Caucasus to Italy as a key route to Europe. It ensures stable supplies and enables further collaboration. Cooperation is also expanding into renewable energy, refining, logistics, infrastructure and technological innovation. Joint projects in biofuels, emissions reduction and scientific exchange are creating new avenues for the partnership. This relationship between the two countries offers Azerbaijan the opportunity to attract new investments and technologies. It also strengthens Italy's role as a reliable partner in the South Caucasus. The partnership demonstrates a strategic collaboration across various sectors, promoting long-term economic stability and global energy cooperation.
Innovation and leadership took centre stage at the InMerge Summit, where industry experts shared their perspectives on technology. Sessions at the event focused on the impact of emerging solutions on digital markets worldwide.
Baku hosted the InMerge Summit 2025, bringing together more than 1,000 participants from over 30 countries. Industry leaders from IBM, Microsoft, Netflix and Pixar joined the event to explore emerging technologies, share expertise and build partnerships shaping the future of the digital economy.
And we talk about experiments. The spotlight today is on bold leadership and new ways of thinking. Speakers say that's what will define the next wave of global innovation.
During his keynote, Netflix co-founder Mark Randolph shared some insights on innovation, technology, and the role of data in transforming media consumption.
And there was a technology we developed which was designed to predict what people would want to watch, which turns out to be tremendously difficult. And Netflix has spent tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 25 years developing the ability to be able to predict what you will like, so that when you go to Netflix and you're presented with choices, they are ones that you actually do want to see.
Beyond the main stage, the summit featured high-level panels, side events and masterclasses focused on AI, sustainable technologies, fintech and investment strategies. Startups showcased innovative solutions and explored partnerships throughout the day, including apps that help users access surplus food at discounted prices while reducing waste.
We are also going to onboard other popular chains into our app, enabling users from different parts of the city to take advantage of the discounted food and be a part of the solution in reducing food waste in our country.
The summit highlighted innovation and collaboration, thus reflecting the region's growing role in the tech sector.
Azerbaijan is hosting the second Azerbaijan-Uzbekistan Media Forum in Baku, which focuses on digital transformation and the media's role.
Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan explore new avenues for media. For that reason, Baku is hosting second Azerbaijan-Uzbekistan Media Forum. The topic of the forum is digital transformation and media, which reflects growing recognition of media's critical role in democracy, transparency and social trust.
At the forum, representatives from both Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan delivered speeches. Speaking at the event, the executive director of the Media Development Agency, Ahmad Ismailov, stressed that digital regulation, new technologies, and shared standards will boost media development in both countries. Journalists from Uzbekistan also participated in the forum and shared their impressions of the event.
This is my fourth visit to Azerbaijan, Baku. It is also my second time participating in the forum. We are already cooperating on various projects. In recent years, Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan have become very closely connected, especially in the media sector. Working with Azerbaijani media is very beneficial and always interesting for us.
The forum continued with panel sessions on the topics Media Partnership in the Digital Age. joint initiatives in the field of information security, and ethical responsibility in the digital information environment. The second Azerbaijan-Uzbekistan Media Forum in Baku will continue until October 1st.
Georgia's reaction to Moldova's parliamentary elections has sparked debate, not about who won, but about where Georgia stands geopolitically. Our correspondent Nini Nikolaishvili has more on that from Tbilisi.
In Sunday's vote, Moldova's pro-European European Party of Action and Solidarity, led by President Maia Sandu, secured nearly half the ballots. Across Europe, the result is being seen as a boost for democratic reform and a setback for Moscow's influence. But in Tbilisi, the response was mixed. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze said it would be difficult for Georgia to congratulate Moldova so long as it remains a member of the Commonwealth of Independent States, or CIS, a bloc created in the early 1990s to keep former Soviet republics tied to Russia's political and security orbit. For Georgia, that association carries bitter memories. After the 2008 war with Russia, Tbilisi formally left the CIS, calling the organization a tool for Moscow to project power and undermine the sovereignty of its neighbors. That's why Kobakhidze explained that Georgia cannot treat Moldova's election result as a straightforward democratic milestone, while Moldova is still formally bound to a Russian-led structure. Yet, the message from Georgia is not one-sided. Opposition representatives, including the former president Salome Zurabishvili, praised Maia Sandu's victory as the best news for Europe, for democracy and a strong response to Russia's hybrid war. She stressed that pro-European Georgia stands firmly with Moldova against Russia's interference. The contrast between government caution and opposition enthusiasm highlights a deeper question. How should small post-Soviet states navigate between old Moscow-led institutions and the promise of European integration? For Georgia, Moldova's election is more than a foreign event. It is a mirror reflecting its own struggle to define alliances and defend sovereignty. As Brussels prepares for the next phase of the EU enlargement, both Moldova and Georgia remain at the heart of Europe's geopolitical crossroads, balancing history, security, and the urgent demand for democracy. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A-News.
To football now, and tonight Almaty will host a match of Europe's main tournament for the very first time. Kairat against Real Madrid is a game that has already entered history and given Kazakhstan a unique footballing moment. From Almaty's Central Stadium, here's our correspondent Fariza Kalamerzana.
Only hours remain until the match Almaty has been eagerly awaiting. For the first time in history, Almaty Football Club Kairat will step onto the Champions League stage, facing Europe's most decorated club, Real Madrid. Tickets sold out in under 4 hours, with 250,000 people in the queue. The Central Stadium is ready to host 23,000 fans. Real Madrid stars, led by Kylian Mbappe and Jude Bellingham, have already arrived in Almaty. Along with them are Vinicius Jr. and Arda Güler. However, the final list of players who will take the field will only be announced 1 hour before the match. For Kairat, it's a historic debut with coach Rafael Urazbakhtin's side, featuring 17-year-old Dastan Satpayev, whose record transfer to Chelsea hasn't stopped him from making his Champions League debut in Kairat's colours. Thousands of international fans have also come to Almaty, including about 4,000 supporters of Real Madrid. I managed to speak with them right here outside the stadium with both visitors and local fans, and everyone is saying the same thing. This is a long-awaited evening of big football.
Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Kairat. It's great to see everybody out here showing Kazakh love for football. I think it's a great opportunity for Kazakhstan to show the world and UEFA what it's got. bring on the Champions League, bring on glory.
I'm from Los Angeles. I came here to support Team Karat, and I hope they make it to the championships. And I'm here to give us big support. Yo voy a dar un soporte muy grande. Espero que gane la Team Karat.
Experts say the Kazakh side can put up a fight. Real Madrid remain favorites, but football always leaves room for surprises. And with upcoming clashes against Inter, Arsenal and Sporting, tonight marks just the beginning of Kairat's European adventure. And as the journey begins, the city holds its breath with all eyes on the central stadium for a night of big football. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
Exciting, isn't it? Now, Afghanistan has gone dark. Internet and phone networks across the country have been cut, leaving millions of people disconnected from each other and from the rest of the world. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
Since late last night, all major telecommunication services have been disabled. Local media reports say the shutdown came by direct order of the Taliban's supreme leader in Kandahar. Sources also suggest not only fiber optic cables were restricted, but mobile operators were told to cut off 3G and 4G services, leaving only 2G as an option. But in practice, even those networks have largely gone silent. The cybersecurity watchdog NetBlocks confirmed the blackout on Monday night, calling it a deliberate action by Afghan authorities, described as part of so-called moral measures. For ordinary Afghans, the shutdown has upended daily life. With communication lines severed, businesses cannot operate, families abroad cannot connect, and right groups warn the blackout is isolating the country further than ever before. At this point, very few options remain for the public to get online. Starlink is one of them, though only a handful of people have access. Officials in Kabul have not issued any statement on the move, but concerns are growing, both inside Afghanistan and beyond its border. Tonight, millions remain without access to phones or the internet, in what observers say is one of the most restrictive blackouts the country has ever faced. We will continue to monitor developments and bring you updates as they come in. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
Welcome back to A News. Now, the Italian President Sergio Mattarella arrived in Azerbaijan today for a working visit. He is set to hold talks with officials, meet with the Italian community in Azerbaijan, and visit the campus of the Italy-Azerbaijan University in Baku. To tell us more, we are joined by Daniel Pommier, a political expert and researcher at ADA University. Thank you for being with us.
Hello.
Now, could you talk us through what's been on the agenda for the Italian president so far and what's to come tomorrow?
As far as I know, the agenda is quite simple. President Mattarella will visit ADA for a kind of inauguration of the Italian-Azerbaijan campus university, which is a joint project between ADA on one side and a group of Italian universities on the other, namely University of Bologna, University Louis of Rome, University Sapienza of Rome, University of Milan, especially on the STEM sciences, on engineering, as well as agriculture, design, so the most innovative sectors. So it's a joint project which will bring Italian professors teaching in ADA and joint degree for Italian and Azerbaijani students. So a kind of circulation of knowledge. Afterward,
Italy is Azerbaijan's largest trading partner too. And how has that relationship between Azerbaijan and Italy evolved over the years, especially in the energy sector?
I have to say that this visit is first thing to say is not only a high visit level, because President Mattarella is something more to the Italians than a normal President of the Republic. Is probably the most reputed and loved figure among the Italian public in an era where politics seems to be downgraded among the public. President Mattarella remains as a living symbol of the institutions. It's not by chance that he's the only President of the Republic elected twice in the Italian history.
So what about those conversations
the
on
President,
the energy sector?
The visit of Mattarella, of President Sergio Mattarella, counts double in the Italian minds. As far as you mean the relation between Azerbaijan and Italy have increased through decades. This relation started, of course, after the independence of Azerbaijan, but increased definitely after 2011, after the Arab Springs, because Italy needed a new energy supplier, and Azerbaijan has become, in years, a reliable trade partner for our energy needs. Italy has a very developed and advanced economy, industrial economy as well, and Azerbaijan has shown to be a reliable supplier and supplier also of energy security as well for the whole European Union. So there is a constant among governments. As you know, in Italy, governments change very often, except apart from the last government in charge from 3 years, and good relations with Azerbaijan, positive strategic relations with Azerbaijan have remained constantly good through years,
and what
either
about
by
some of the newer projects?
Government or conservative governments. Sorry?
What about some of the newer projects that Azerbaijan and Italy can collaborate on?
First of all, education, because I belong to this world, so I must emphasize education. For years, from the I would say 2013, 2014, hundreds and hundreds of Azerbaijani students arrived studying in the Italian university. So the exchange of knowledge and the learning abroad is a pillar of any, not only economic development, but political relation as well. So with the creation of the Italian Azerbaijan University, I think this relation have been brought to an upper level, quality level. And then there is the great growing involvement of Italian companies in the Azerbaijani economy, not to mention Ansaldo, for instance, or Eni, or Leonardo, and many other companies constantly involved in the needs of a fast-growing economy like Azerbaijan. So the relation between the two countries can be described as a win-win.
And renewable energy is significant too, as well, isn't it, between the two countries?
Yes, we are all aware of the change in the geopolitical landscape. The Trans-Adriatic pipeline was not only strategic, was a real breakthrough in political, economic, international relations. It was built well before the breakup of Ukrainian crisis, of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the imposition of sanctions against Russian supplies, against Russian oil, and the reduction of dependence of Russian gas for the European economies. So the people who forecasted the development of the Trans-Adriatic pipeline were very enlightened, in my opinion. They did the right thing. This pipeline is bringing more and more gas year after year. Is often talked about doubling the size and the quantity of gas brought by this pipeline, and I think that the future project will involve the increasing entangling of the two economies.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us on the programme and for your insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Have a good night. Bye.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.